Let's hear a little bit from Raheem Morris on the Kirk Cousins reaction to this stunning decision to make Penix the 8th overall pick in the draft.
And Kirk does not have to look over his shoulder every time he throws a bad pass. Like, that is not the case. So I know I'm going to have to tell you guys once or twice that is not the case. The only thing that you can show is just you keep showing people that you mean it and what you're saying, and everything's going to happen, right? Because there's always going to be some form of, looking over your shoulder. And I'm going to try to eliminate that as much as I can.
Yeah, I mean, good luck with that. The looking over the shoulder is implied because of the fact that he's there. And it's one thing if the coach keeps saying, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. It's everybody else that they're completely ignoring in this. It's the locker room. It's the media. It's the fan base. Kirk is throwing bad passes, but hey, don't look over your shoulder. But they're booing and they're chanting, we want Penix. And the locker room is giving you the side eye because they know that Penix is better than you. That's the problem. It doesn't matter if the coach says all that stuff.
Exactly.
It's everybody else.
Right.
Have you ever seen a team have to work so hard to justify a top 10 pick? I'm sure it's happened and I'm not remembering it, but that's not what you want it to be. It should be celebration. It shouldn't be explanation. It shouldn't be we have to keep coming back to this every press conference to address these questions, to the point where they're going to get pissed off sooner than later about having to answer these questions. But it really is ludicrous. And they're going to try to create an environment where Cousins can go out and give it his best shot, and they'll unleash Penix whenever. But, something I didn't mention from earlier, this idea that Penix would sit for 4 or 5 years is one of, and I like Terry
this is the next thing to go to. Go ahead.
It's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in 23 years.
The negative was he's too old about being drafted. Now we're going to sit him for 4 years, right? That's all we heard about, right?
Well, how do you listen? How do you sit him for 5 years? How do you sit him? You pick up his 5th-year option and he doesn't play once? Think about that.
I know.
We got a 4-year contract.
Yeah.
We got a 5th-year option. We're going to pick up the 5th-year option on a guy who's never played. And then after his 5th year, when he's eligible for free agency, and we have to franchise tag him to keep him off the market, how are we going to sign him to a long-term deal when he's never played? How do you even begin to put a value on a guy who has been sitting for 5 years and has never played? So that is just, and I don't think Terry Fontenot meant it. This is just get the heat out of the hot kitchen, move on to the next topic. I don't want to talk about this anymore. Yeah, if he sits 4 or 5 years, great. I mean, the reality is, he's sitting, and I'd love to figure out a good over-under for this as to how long Michael Penix is sitting. I think it's as little as 1 year.
Definitely.
I think more realistically it's 2, and at the high end it's 3.
Yeah, but I kind of look at it as 1 year. I mean, Michael Penix is smart. He's going to be ready to go. He's been playing in a pro-style offense, right? He's advanced. He's mature. He takes this seriously. Right, this is one of the positives about Michael Penix was that it's not going to be as much of an adjustment period. The negative was he's a little old, right? And there's injuries. The positives are he's a little old, he's mature, and he's played a ton of football. So that makes no sense, to your point. And, you get back to the whole conversation of it takes away, a leg out from Kirk Cousins and his ability to lead the football team. He is going to look over his shoulder. I don't care what you say. If he starts off a game 2 for 12 in week 5 and everybody's booing and, maybe at that point they're 1-3 and everything's going crazy. Great. Coaches say stuff like Raheem Morris said all the time. Oh, no, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder until the shit hits the fan, and then he's got to look over his sholders because all of a sudden everybody's booing, and I feel it, and the media's been on me all week, and the players, like you said, are looking at me. And, oh, no, actually it is time to look over your shoulder. They're going to give him a warning and be like, hey, look over your shoulder now. You're not playing very good. But the other part of this is that, how did this happen? Did they get blown away by the personal workout? Which is okay. But what I would want to say to that is that has to happen already. You should have already known this. You knew you needed a quarterback, right? I've had people push back against me and go, well, maybe they saw him at the workout and they didn't realize you were the pick number 8. You needed a quarterback. You should have known that already. It's too late, right? Now, the assets, you get into that. Let's flip it around. Damn, I would have loved Michael Penix, and for $180 million, they could have got Christian Wilkins and Bryce Huff and maybe Danielle Hunter, too, on the football team. I like that team better than Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins, and I don't know who the hell's on the defense. So that's where it's a stupid allotment of assets. And we know the good teams balance the assets the best, and this doesn't seem right. And that's where we're all like, what the hell's going on?
You mentioned the whole what if Kirk is 2 for 12 and they're 1-3. You know, he's never had this. He's never had a situation like
Not like this.
He was the guy who was the, oh, by the way, 4th-round pick in 2012 when Snyder forced RG3 on the Shanahans, and the Shanahans like Cousins. And after a couple years, they realized RG3 wasn't it. Cousins played. By RG3's fourth year.
Yeah.
They put him in bubble wrap because his 5th-year option back at the time, it's only guaranteed for injury. He didn't play at all that year. Cousins plays. Then they got a franchise tag him. They never made him a fair offer, but he never had, in Washington or in Minnesota, a truly competitive threat.
Yeah, young
number
stud
2.
behind him, right.
And now he does. On top of everything else he's dealing with, he's got the torn Achilles, he's got a new team, he's got the expectations built in with getting $100 million fully guaranteed, and now he's got a guy who may come in and capture the hearts and minds of the fan base.
That's it. Yeah.
That's where, and you know, somebody told me over the weekend, and again, I like Terry Fontenot, I like Raheem Morris.
Me too.
And I have given the Browns a hard time in the past because they've got, what's his name? The chief strategy officer. The guy
Podesta.
that was in baseball. Podesta. Podesta.
Paul Podesta. Right, thank you.
Well, you know, somebody told me over the weekend the problem is they have no strategists in the building in Atlanta. And I don't think they thought this through. Because I think that's one of the things you have to do. You have to have someone who can say, here's a flow chart. Here's all the permutations. Here's all the things we're going to have to deal with. Here's how we need to consider our various choices. And you're right. They knew they needed a quarterback. You better do all your work on all the quarterbacks before it's time to fly to Washington and see him throw passes to a couple of guys that he used to play with at Washington who show up to catch him that day.
That's right.
You better have scouts at his games.
You should have GM already been to one of his games. You better, as a GM and you need a quarterback, you should have already been at his game and seen him throw and already come back and been like, everybody, it's December. I just want to tell you, I saw Michael Penix. It's insane. He's throwing the ball everywhere. Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh. Don't tell anybody, shut up. We're going to pick him at 8. Like, shut up. We're going to lay in the weeds. They should have known. Yeah, sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off. You know, I'm just
No,
going,
it's fine.
Yeah.
And look, I know once you decide you want the guy, there is a very high degree of importance attached to being secret. And that gets back to just managing relationships. On one hand, it is one big machine, and parts go out, parts go in. Parts go out, parts go in. But still, some of those parts, you better be a little more concerned with the relationship than others. And when you have just lured Kirk Cousins to make a major professional life change under the guise of we're going to win, we're going to win, we're going to win. And look, who knows what they said to him about what they plan to do with the 8th overall pick, but I know what they didn't say. They didn't tell him they were going to take a quarterback. Now, maybe they thought he'd go to a press conference and blurt it out like he blurted out the tampering evidence. But regardless, you create an impression for the guy to get him to come there. And this pick completely undercuts it. Now they have cleanup on aisle 5 in Atlanta to get Cousins' mind right. On top of all the other shit they got to deal with to try to take their team where it was to the top of the division as far as it can go in the playoffs, they got to get Kirk Cousins' mind right. And, Chris, you got to get Michael Penix's mind right because he's got to be thinking the more he hears this. Pete made the point that Saturday's press conference after the entire draft ended, 32 minutes, half of it was about Penix.
Yeah.
Half of it was about the guy that was picked 2 days ago.
Right.
Like, at some point, Penix is going to be like, why am I here? And his attitude's going to be, I want to play. I want to play. If I'd have been drafted by this team, I'd be playing. If I'd been drafted by that team, I'd be playing. All these other guys are going to play, and he's going to be Jordan Love. Think about that. We found out how good Jordan was this year, finally, after he had to sit and watch Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert and Jalen Hurts the last 3 years. Before that, but at least it was Aaron Rodgers that was playing.
That's right. That's right.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
This is mid-level guy, flashes of top 10, flashes of top 5, was on a trajectory in Minnesota that created a conversion in me. Let's see how this book ends. Let's keep him in Minnesota and see how it goes. Oh, well, now he's going to take his talents to Atlanta. Oh, and they brought his I mean, I bet they were laughing their asses off in Minnesota about
Oh, I bet you they were. I bet you. Yeah, I bet you. They were like, oh, he wanted to hold us over, the barrel for every last dollar. How'd that work for him? He got every last dollar, and now he's got every last dollar pain in his butt every day at practice, dealing with a guy that, like you said, Jordan Love, Michael Penix is better than Jordan Love coming out, and Michael Penix is ready. Michael Penix is a gifted, put him in the shotgun, and I just don't have any doubt he's going to tear people up. He's a natural that way. And then here's the other thing that I think on top of this, Mike, this is where I'd worry about the Achilles or anything like that, is like with that type of injury, I guarantee Kirk Cousins, when we get to training camp, is going to have to manage that. He's going to have days where they're going to go, take the practice off. Don't do both practices today, or maybe you take the day off completely. And what's that going to lead to, Mike? It's going to lead to Michael Penix Jr. now taking reps with the number ones. And, it's week 2 of training camp, and it's the second time he's gotten to work with the ones. And, whoa, look at that bomb to Darnell Mooney Jr. Look at that bomb right there to Drake London. Whoa, what a throw to Bijan Robinson. Damn, the future looks good. The future looks good. The future looks good. Damn, how long are we going to wait to make the future look good? Do we want to make it look good now? I mean, that's what they're going to do. They're going to cause everybody in the locker room like we always talk about. They're all going to be going in the locker room going, damn, we gave $180 million to Kirk Cousins, and Michael Penix is tearing it up every day. And it's going to be a problem. And that's why I thought, part of this whole thing, everybody's in shock. Everybody is in shock about this pick.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.